guests. We have an esteemed panel up here that is going to share years of knowledge with you about being a franchisee, what it takes to be successful, and some other tips that they have that you're going to find very insightful. But before we get started, a couple of housekeeping things. This session is being live streamed, so we're going to try and stay on track as much as possible in terms of timing. There is another session right after this, so we're going to be mindful of that during the Q&A, which we will certainly have at the end. And then afterwards, also, I know there's a lot of follow-up questions that you're going to have for either myself or the panel, so we'll try to move it outside, again, to not disrupt the next session, and we're more than happy to take your questions and talk to you guys out there as well. So please join me in welcoming Nicole Ineru, Lester Adams, and Jackie Ford. So before we jump into questions I have for the panel, I'd like each of them to take maybe 90 seconds to give us a little bit of insight on who they are, what franchises that they own, and anything else they'd like to share up front with us that's going to be pertinent to our conversation. Jackie?
Hi, I'm Jackie Great Ford. I started Burger King in 1994. I'm also a Jamba Juice franchisee. I started that in 2011, and a Bricks Pizza, which started here locally in Charlotte, but I'm in Georgia, and I started that 5 years ago. I do have a background in food service management, and I joined the Air Force as a food service officer, so food is all I know.
Lester?
Good afternoon. My name is Lester Adams. I'm the Director of Franchise Development for Choice Hotels. My focus at Choice is finding minorities that want to become hotel franchise owners. With that, my background is rather varied. I spent 15 years within the hospitality space with Choice, with Marriott, and with IHG, all in development roles. I also have a legal background and done some other things. I'm presently also an owner of my own consulting firm, so not a franchisee on this level, but definitely an entrepreneur, and that is very important for the conversations that I need to have with prospective franchisees. It's speaking from an entrepreneur spirit, not just from your side, but also from mine, so I can make sure that I understand exactly what you need to know and what I need to give you in our conversation.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicole Ineru. I'm a McDonald's franchisee. I work with my mom and my sister together. We operate 18 restaurants in the Los Angeles area. And my background is in psychology and social work, which helps me every day in my restaurants.
Great, thanks. So I want to start with why franchising. I'm a certified franchise consultant, and I get calls all day from people that want to learn more about franchising, how to get into franchising, the ins and outs. So I want to ask the panel, what are the pros about getting into franchising as opposed to starting on your own?
Sure, I'll start. So I actually got into franchising because my mom, as I said, is a franchisee. Actually, she and my father started working together in 1984. My father was a police officer with LAPD, and my mom worked for the state of California. And it was actually my mom's sister. At the time, McDonald's was looking to make sure that the ownership of their restaurants was reflective of the neighborhoods that they were doing business in. So my parents had an opportunity to get involved in McDonald's. And as I said, my background is in psychology. I actually had a career in social work for 10 years before deciding to join the business with my mom. For me, the decision was two things. First, one night I was up late doing some casework, and I thought, I'm killing myself for somebody else, and maybe I could work just as hard for myself. And the other thing that really happened that kind of changed my mind and got me into thinking about having my own business is that one of my clients came into my office, and we started talking, and she told me that she used to work at McDonald's, and she talked about the owner of the restaurant and how the owner really changed her life, helped her to understand the importance of education, and actually encouraged her to go to college. So of course we started talking, and it was my mom. So I didn't know, obviously, that that's what it was, but I thought about, the idea of me helping people didn't necessarily have to be in social work, that I could impact people's lives in franchising as well. So that's what caused me to get into franchising.
Okay, for me, like I said, I have a degree in food service management, and I had read about franchising for forever and just knew from day one that I wanted to be a franchisee. And children came and your dreams kind of fade, but that one never did. My husband and I would talk about it, and we had 1 year that we said we were going to do something even if it's wrong. I don't always recommend that, but we said we would do it even if it was wrong. And just so happened that Crystal was coming to Charlotte, and we applied and got accepted. At the same time, the airport opportunity came, and that was my first store, the Charlotte Airport main concourse, so go by and see us. We had the Crystal in one hand and the airport Burger King in another hand, and we chose the airport in 1994. And I said that when that was awarded us, I said, God certainly has a sense of humor. It was my first store, my first entree into business. I didn't know what I was doing. But that was 24 years ago. So,
I think the interesting thing I want to point out, speaking from the franchisor side, why franchising? One of the best opportunities in putting your money to work for you and putting your efforts to work for you with somebody that's already established a brand and a brand identity. It's an easier path into trying to work towards profitability when you have someone that's already created something that you know. For those of you that have been outside the country and you've eaten a couple of things that just didn't seem right, I was searching for a Big Mac because I knew what it was. And it's just that idea that I know what it is that creates a better possibility for you from a profitability standpoint to go into that business. But I want you to hear the most important things that the ladies just said. Did anybody sound like that they brought a bag of money from a leprechaun in order to build these businesses? People simply saved money, worked, borrowed money, did all the things that you need to do in order to make that step into it. It's an attainable opportunity. It's not a cheap opportunity. It's attainable, and it's going to take effort, and it's going to take grouping together, and it's going to take investments and silent investors and all types of things, but it's not something that has to be mystical. You go into one every day. It shouldn't be mystical. It's sitting right on the corner. It's there. So demystify the opportunity and try to find your way into it. And I think that's what I heard as the ladies spoke so eloquently about what they said.
But I have to add this, just because it is a known entity does not mean that you will be successful.
That's true.
Do your homework, people.
Sure.
Read everything out there. When you have an interest and you speak to the franchisor, they will send you what's called an FDD. They used to send it by mail, and it would be this thick. Now it's online. And you would say, I would never read anything like that. I'm telling you to read it, know it. And you'll see in the back of it, you'll see where some people have sued the company, why people have left. Call the current people, call those people who have left. That way you'll get a realistic view of what you're getting into. And then the second part of that will be you'll get a franchise agreement. Read it, know it. And in my 24 years, I still go back and reread mine because I have to keep in my head what my obligations to that franchisor are.
So let's stay on that for a little bit, because I know that it is daunting when you're hearing Nicole like, oh, I have 18 McDonald's. Like, you have to start with one. And so let's talk a little bit about how you go into that multi-unit. So, because some people come with the attitude of, I'm building an empire, I have my first one, I know when I want my second one, they buy multiple licenses, and but others come in with one unit and they say, I really like this, I think I'm gonna do really well, and that's how they go into the next one, or they're offered the next one. I know in your case, Nicole, I had the pleasure of interviewing Nicole last year about her family, and her story went viral just because it was just such an empowering story about your family. So talk a little bit about the demystification of how that works when you buy one and how you can afford the next one, because McDonald's is not cheap. So talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So again, my parents started out and they started with one restaurant, and really back then and to now, it's really all about performance. So yes, you have brand McDonald's, but for all of you, you know the difference between the one restaurant that's by your house that you don't go to because it's a mess, and then the one that's maybe a little bit further, but the people are nice and it's clean, and you always have a great experience. So even though you might have, you know, a bunch of franchisees, what's going to make the difference if you're successful, if you are offered that next restaurant, is your performance. So my parents started with one, they got another one, actually ended up divorcing, and my mom bought my dad out and became a single female black owner-operator in Los Angeles. And then because she was so involved in the business, she grew quickly. So from 2, she went to 5, she went to 12 from there. And the way the McDonald's system works is if you have what's called a next generation, so your child is involved in the business, the idea is you're eventually going to want to retire, and your children will take over your, you know, whatever organization, the restaurants that you have. They are looking at performance, and so as I was going through the program where I was developing to become an owner-operator, there was an opportunity for them to license me separately from my mom. So I actually did not get my mom's restaurants. I was licensed separately with 2 of my own airport restaurants, so I understand the craziness of living in the airport. But so it's about how do you differentiate, just like in any other business, how do you differentiate yourself from everybody else who wants to get, you know, that next position, that next restaurant, and the opportunities come if you figure out how you differentiate yourself.
Anything to add on that, Jackie? In terms
No, I always wanted to stay small, because when I initially started, I had small children. And then after I knew what I had gotten into, I didn't want to grow that much. My daughter has since, like Nicole, become a franchisee in her own right as well.
Yeah, so that's really important. As you can see, it's the legacy, right? But even in Nicole's story, she didn't necessarily think she was going to inherit the McDonald's or go that route. She went and did her own thing, had her own career, and ended up back there. So people, I think, stumble upon it in many ways. But Lester, I want to ask you a question from a franchisor perspective. Okay. What should people be looking for in a franchisor?
Well, you should be looking for someone that's going to put their best efforts into making sure that you're successful. At Choice Hotels, one of the things that drew me to Choice is we're 100% franchised. In the hotel space, that's important because if you own or if you manage properties in the same city as a lot of people own franchises, you're competing. Mm-hmm. You're competing for business, you're competing for that reservation system. So by being 100% franchised, our sole efforts are guided in helping you to be profitable. So if you're not profitable, we're not profitable. So it puts a lot of onus on us to make sure that we're creating systems that are working well with what you're going to be dealing with as a worldwide entity, but what's going to work well in your small neck of the woods, in your part of that submarket. How are we best helping you to get through some of the ebbs and flows of the industry, because there's good times and there's bad. It is a cyclical industry and you hit every part of the wave. So we have to make sure that we're helping you through that, because it's not anyone's fault. It's a fact of the life. It's a fact of business. So we just have to make sure that you're looking for someone that's going to be a good partner, that's going to be upfront, that's going to show you exactly how to do well in the business and support you along that way. And where there are the times when you're not, they're not going to just put you out the pasture. There's a way to go in and try to help and see if we can turn things around. And there are all kinds of opportunities that we have internally to do that. And if you don't have a franchisor that has those things in place, then you've got somebody that's really going to leave you out to dry the second things get difficult.
And the way you're going to know that is what we talked about earlier, which is the due diligence, right? So you're going to talk to the franchisor, you're going to go in, you're going to see how the operation works, you're going to talk to other franchisees, and they're going to tell you they don't support me at all, or they're really good at this, or not so good at that. So you really need to ask those questions to make sure. So staying on that, let's talk profitability. So I know less about the hotel chain industry, but let's talk about that, because I know people see McDonald's and they're like, oh, those people are making millions of dollars and they're driving Bentleys and all that kind of thing. But But at the same time, I also get the question about, but why do I have to pay royalties? People, when people come to me and they ask about royalties, I always say, if you're worried about more about what the franchisor is making than what you're making, it may not be the business for you. Because there is a big expense that comes with running, national, international franchises. And if they're supporting you really well and you're making a lot of money, stop worrying about what they're making and, and pay more attention to your business. So you guys want to talk a little bit about your organizations, McDonald's, Burger King, Jamba Juice, Choice, how they support their franchisee owners?
Ladies.
Go ahead.
Okay. So with McDonald's, they provide a lot of services. So they help us with training. I'm not sure if you all are aware, but we have a university actually in Chicago where all of our managers who become general managers go, and it's a college course that you can get college credit for. So there's assistance as it relates to, they offer training opportunities for us. There's a consultant that comes in to consult with us as it relates to the operations and the things going on in the restaurant, as it relates to when you're looking for a new location. They assist with, finding the different sites and working through the plans and getting the permits and those kinds of things. So they really do provide you with a lot of services, and kind of like, like Lester alluded to, if you're in trouble, there are a lot of resources within McDonald's Corporation, but then there are also groups that you can affiliate yourself with. So like for me, I'm a member of the National Black McDonald's Owner-Operators Association. So there's always that networking opportunity, and also a way to, if you need help, to get information. Also, I'm a member of the Women Owner Network. So there are a lot of networks out there to help you, but they do provide services, because at the end of the day, it's the brand, right? So I know we talked earlier about the benefits of having this international brand behind you, but it's also a responsibility. So, if something happens at my McDonald's, it's not like people are gonna say, okay, I'm not gonna go to Nicole's McDonald's. It's the whole brand. So we are really, making ourselves vulnerable to every person who owns a McDonald's, because if something happens, we all have to deal with the consequences of that. So there's pluses and minuses in that situation.
Don't forget the advertising fee.
Oh, right, advertising, local and national.
And national. So all this you can find in the FDD and your franchise agreement, so I'm going to keep saying that. But basically, I think they're the same. I don't think that, I think everybody provides some resources to their franchisees, and being in 3 different and vastly different franchises, it's about the same, the things that they provide. Now, I have to say to my competitor, my main competitor here, they do a very good job, so, in what they offer.
Well, as a franchisor, we're a for-profit business.
Mm-hmm.
Simple and plain, start there. We're a for-profit business, and the way that we make money by not owning hotels is by charging you to own our hotels. Simple and plain, simple and plain. And that's not meant to be combative or anything like that, but it's a for-profit business that's allowing you the opportunity to have a for-profit business. So I've got to make some profit while you make some profit. And what I have to do for my services is I have to make sure that my name means something, that when people walk through the door, it resonates, and it gives you the opportunity to say, I want to walk in those doors. I want that food. I want that whatever experience you have. We have to be about the position of making sure that that means something. It's a position of goodwill. My background is law. I went to Howard University School of Law, and intellectual property is simply this, what is it that you have that this other person doesn't have that's going to make them want to see you? And have you patented it? Can you sell it? Can you do something with it? Turn that into a building, turn that into a few other things, you've got a franchise. And people want to go in and buy that. And so yes, the franchisor is there to make money. A good franchisor does not go out of its way to take money from its franchisee to the point that it hurts them, because how will you grow if you hurt the people who open their wallets to build your franchises? So there's got to be a give and take, and there's got to be some balance to what you're doing. But it has to. You have to understand that both entities are in this in order to make money.
Definitely.
Well
So
said.
let's talk about passing the torch. I know that's a big thing for you right now, Jackie. So let's talk a little bit about working with family, passing the torch. How's that going for you? What are you guys thinking about, in the future in terms of what you're going to do when it gets to that point?
Well, you see the gray hair on this head. I earned every one of them. And so at some point you have to realize that what you're going to do, where you want to be in life. And after 24 years, I'm getting on the other side. And this is a young person's game. I admire Nicole there because of the energy. But you can see not so much energy here. Not really. But at some point you have to determine what your plans are, what your succession plans are, and they change. Life circumstances will help you change those along the way. So get your plan in place and stick to your plan. And that plan could mean thinking that your daughter was going to take over the business, and that might change, and then it might change again. But just know that get a plan, get it established, and work your plan.
I would say, from the parents' perspective, just make sure that you and your child are aligned on what's going to happen, what's the timing of how it's going to happen. I am very blessed. My mom, although she never, as I was doing my own career, she never was on my case to get involved in McDonald's. When I came in, she was very happy about it, and we worked together for about 4 years before I got my own restaurants. And then I was able to come back into her organization, so we joined together as one. But when she was ready to let go, she let go. And she let me go on and do the things that I needed to do. I can't imagine, and it happens, I know, with friends and other people, when the parents are saying they're letting go, but they're not really letting go. It just creates a lot of unnecessary havoc for the family, which you don't want your business to have a negative impact on your family. And also for your business, because your people, like kids, can see if there's some kind of struggle going on, and then they're playing one against the other. It just creates a lot of problems. So I just think it's important to sit down, have your plan, and just be very clear and hold each other accountable to what you've said and how you've put things in place.
Speaking from an outside perspective, and also speaking from a different realm in terms of franchise, understanding your actual business and your investment is key to understanding your succession plan. For hotels, you're running two businesses. You're running a day-to-day operation that you're trying to create profit from, but you've got commercial real estate that's either appreciating or depreciating. More times than not, it's appreciating. You may not be in the place of wanting to pass on that business, but you just may knock that building down and keep the land, because there's something else you can do with the land if you own the land up under it. So understanding how all of that works into what you're going to do and what you're going to pass on. There are a lot of ways to skin that cat, but you need to understand exactly what your investment is and where the value lies in order to understand how you'll deal with it step 2, step 7, and on and on.
So let's stay on that for a minute, because I know one of the topics you want to really touch on is real estate gentrification and what's going on there. So talk a little bit about,
Sure.
where we're at.
Well, anybody that's in any major city in this country right now is dealing with the specter of gentrification, and it's one of the things that we see from a hotel perspective in a very interesting way. Not every neighborhood is built to have some type of hotel in it. However, as you look at neighborhoods moving, Don Peoples is building right behind us in what used to be an African-American neighborhood that's now in the middle of Uptown, and it's going to be a new development. Gentrification is going to happen to you, or you're going to happen to it. It's that simple. So making sure that we're looking at opportunities, and not just hotels, any kind of business, a subway, doesn't matter what it is, making sure that you're looking at opportunities to invest in your neighborhood before somebody comes in to decide to invest in it for you is exactly the way that we can go in and create the kind of economic development in the community that we want. See, the biggest issue is we actually own land in our community. Then we sell it and give it away. turn around 5 years later and you're begging to get back into that community that you sold your land in before. It doesn't have to happen that way. Pay the taxes, take the cost, be patient with your money, and find the opportunity that time is always going to bring. When they gave us neighborhoods just outside of downtown that are now run down, eventually downtown is still standing right there. It's going to become valuable again. So what can you do with that land at that next juncture when it's time to do that? Just making sure that you're seeing all of the issues that are at hand. Again, there are two businesses if you own the land on your business. There's the investment and there's the actual absolute day-to-day business. So just keep that in mind. In the African American community, the biggest owner of land is the Black church. Mm-hmm. There's opportunity for economic development everywhere we look. Yet we still are having in every big city, our communities are being taken. There's opportunities to go in to partner. There's opportunities with some of our schools to go in and see if you can leverage some of that land in order to do more economic development. And now you're talking about ways of doing it coming in with less money. But you got a good idea and you've got a good business plan, not idea, business plan that you're going to be able to push forward on. So keep that in mind as you're looking at your opportunities. Invest in your neighborhood, especially as you see them changing, because eventually it's going to price you out. And nobody likes to be looking back into the neighborhood wondering what if, when I knew 20 years ago, I sat right on that corner and I could have done a whole lot more with it.
And Jackie, add to that, because again, you're multi-unit owner, going about purchasing the real estate, finding out about it, inquiring and actually getting a hold of it. Talk a little bit about that.
What I did is I had a developer help me as I went into different places, and I had two different companies. I had the operating company and I had the real estate company, and when I would buy the land, but know that when you do buy land, it can change. That whole area can change, and that means that your store could go from highly profitable to not so profitable. So stay in tune with what the government in your area, the local government is doing, where they are pushing areas in and out, because that will affect you. But I was one of those people who, when I started working my plan, one of the first things I did was sell the land, because for me, I had to see what was more valuable, the business or the land. And at that point, if the land is more valuable at the end of your franchise agreement, because franchise agreements are usually 20 years, or it's 20 years, and you have the chance to successor that business and do another 20 years. But if the business is just doing okay, is that what you want to do? And that's all part of my work and my plan. I had to determine whether I wanted to successor or whether I wanted to move on to a different location. And sometimes it just means that you can sell that piece of property and move down the street 3 miles, and you're in a whole different trade area, which is more valuable. Am I getting off topic here? Okay.
Yeah, so real estate is one thing. It helps in the community. It makes you feel more secure. Mm-hmm. You can leverage it. There's equity there. Nicole, talk about what else that franchising does for the community, because you guys have a lot of employees, right? So let's talk about that.
Yes, we have a lot of employees. That's where all the social work and stuff comes into play to be helpful. So we really have an attitude of being very involved in the communities where we do business, from getting involved with local schools, local churches, getting involved with things that are happening with the employees. Right now with McDonald's, one of the things that they are offering for free to our employees, they can get money to go to college. They can participate in a free online program to get their high school diploma or their GED. Also, they can take an English as a second language course. So there are a lot of opportunities. I think for me, I do a lot of speaking at schools and different things like that, and it continues to be about educating people about opportunities. I think for a long time, and even now, it's like McDonald's is the job that you end up with if you don't go to school. Like, you want to go to school, so you don't end up working at McDonald's. And I always like to talk about the fact that you can go work at McDonald's and go to school. Or you can, use that to start your career, or it can become your career. Of our 18 restaurants, all of our managers started off as crew people, worked their way up through the system, and are now running multi-million dollar businesses. So it's really about what you put into it and what you want to get out of it. And even outside of our franchise restaurants within McDonald's corporations, they're all different kinds of job, lawyers and marketing and everything that you can think of. So it's really about, what you get out of it. And then just from a community standpoint, our biggest community partner is the Ronald McDonald House. If you guys are not aware, in most major cities, we have a Ronald McDonald House where it will be very close to a children's hospital, and it's a place where parents and families of children who are suffering with different illnesses, who may be in the hospital, their parents have traveled from all different places, sometimes around the world, to come get treatment, and they're able to stay in these Ronald McDonald houses for free. So we partner with Ronald McDonald House to do fundraising and support of those houses in our communities.
Yeah, Nicole's being a little modest. So their flagship, McDonald's, I believe it was, got national attention for turning the M upside down to be W for Women's Day, right?
Yes,
so they do quite
true.
a bit in the community. I know Compton and the surrounding area really appreciate it. So we're going to get into Q&A because I want to make sure you guys have enough time to ask questions. I don't know, Pam, it's going to be a standalone mic. But again, if you could please keep your questions specific. And if you want to, if it's just for the whole panel, just throw it out there. If you have a specific question about an industry or food, hotel, you can address the specific person.
Lester, one question I had. Is there a reason why you don't see a lot of African Americans going into hotels? Is there something moving that's helping us get into that, or how's that working for us?
Great question. A few reasons why we don't see a lot of minorities in hotel ownership. One is lack of information for those people that do have the resources. A lot of people just don't realize that you can actually own a hotel. I spend a lot of time with a lot of people that do very well, and they had no clue that Marriott they stayed in was owned by somebody that could have been sitting next to them. So one, it's having that conversation. Two, this is capital intensive. This is expensive. Outside of hotels, the next franchise that you'd buy above us would be a team. So that's how expensive this can be. Also, you can find something and buy something off of a 10x auction, and you can do this very easily. So it kind of runs the gamut. That kind of holds people back from wanting to do it, and it slows people down. So what we have at Choice is a program that I actually run, the Emerging Markets Program, which finds minorities, gives incentive money, and also my time and expertise in order to help people through the process of owning a hotel. At the same time, and I'll give this away outside, there's the National Association of Black Hotel Owners, Operators, and Developers, NABHOOD. There's a conference every year. It's going into its 25th year. You can go and learn more about that because there are people that are doing that, and there are people every year that are coming to learn more about Hotel 101. How do I go about owning a hotel, and how does this process work? So there are a lot of reasons as why not, but there's a lot of opportunities to get past that as well.
Absolutely, and just ancillary services too. If you go to that conference, I mean, it's not just about owning the hotel, it's everything, that goes into supporting and owning a hotel, so it's a great conference.
Hello, I'm Vanea from Wisconsin, and I noticed that many of you have separate businesses or separate companies, and does that have anything to do with how you structure your businesses and the franchise being under another company? Can you just talk about your structure?
For me, say for my Great Food Services, it could only operate as Burger King, and the same way with Harbor Management could only operate Jamba Juices. So it was mainly because you do want to keep them separate for various reasons. But the franchisor requires that they be separate.
Yeah, and also some franchisors will not allow you to own competing businesses. So that's another thing you need to think about in your plan.
That's in the FDD. Okay, I'm going to keep saying that. Read that FDD.
Yeah, absolutely.
Blessings to you guys. My name is Pedro Moore, and I have a company called Fund and Fuel, which is an equity crowdfunding website for local franchise to allow anyone to invest in a local franchise and earn passive income. And so I have a background in venture capital, and I invest in technology startup companies. And so franchise is a new category for me. So I want to know, when you guys basically open up your guys' stores, the various stores, what were some of the pain points that you guys encounter in going through that particular process?
I guess for me, like you said, making sure you know all of the history, making sure you're reading the franchise document and what's required. So when the way that it works in McDonald's, your rent is due like on the 10th day of the month. And so when I got into the airport, which is a very high volume restaurant that had a lot of rent requirements, on the 10th of the month I was required, and I didn't have any money. So I had to figure out, okay, like what am I gonna do? So going back, tapping into those resources to see, okay, how does this work? Because I'm coming in with nothing and this is what happened. So for me, it was just kind of orienting myself to what was going on, and each restaurant is different. So from one restaurant purchase to another can be completely different. All of the numbers are completely different. People ask me all the time, well, how much does it cost to get into McDonald's? And there's no one amount, because every restaurant has different numbers, different sales, different rent, you know. So really, I think is making sure you're well educated about what you're getting into.
And I talk to a lot of people about it all the time, and financing is the big elephant in the room, is where do I get money? I've been approved, or I want to be approved, but where will I get the resources? And sometimes you can say you have hidden resources. Like Lester said, you might have friends or family who want to be financial partners, or you might find a group who want to invest, but it's always financing is the big picture, because I don't care if you're doing a small restaurant or big restaurant, it's still big money.
Hi, I'm Martez Prince, and I actually own an independent pharmacy here. But I started, my first job was at a fast food restaurant, and I think that it instilled a lot of customer service skills, which allowed me to kind of get to where I am today. And because I believe that's important, I have like dreams of opening a restaurant. However, I know in the capacity in which I've served, having 2 pharmacies, I would never be able to actually operate, like, you know, work there. So how does that work? I know I've heard some franchises require you to actually work in the restaurant in order to own the restaurant. Kind of share, you know, what happened to you when starting up.
Yes, for sure. For McDonald's, you have to work in the restaurant. I mean, there's a training program that you have to go through to make sure you're familiar with how the operation runs. And just from personal experience, I think it's invaluable. That time you spend in the restaurant, connecting with your crew people, even up till now, it's so important for my crew people to know who I am. Like, I'm the owner. McDonald's doesn't own that restaurant. I'm the one who owns the restaurant. So it's very important, because then they become engaged with you as a person and understand you and know that you as a person care about them as a person. So I think to be successful, especially in fast food, it is required by McDonald's, but I think it's invaluable personally.
But not only that, we are still a cash-intensive business, and you want to know how to read your financials. I don't know if you, if you have a problem, you want to be able to pinpoint that problem. And if you don't know your operations, if you haven't been in there, or if you don't know that that fryer is on its last leg and you need to project that you're going to spend $25,000 that you really didn't want to spend, if you aren't in your operation, this is just my opinion, that if you're not in your operation, you don't know it and you don't run, it doesn't run as well. And then too, you kind of have to know how far you can push your people, meaning that if 3 people called off and only 3 people are working, you can't get anybody else to come in. Are those the 3 people I can trust to get through that 4-hour period? So for me, knowing your operation, knowing what people are capable of, knowing how to read your financials to a point that you can pinpoint a problem.
Yeah, and we should talk afterwards, because there are food franchises that do allow absentee ownership. I always say, you know, it's not like Chris Brown is flipping burgers, right? So you can, but it's cash intensive, And there are pitfalls, so you just want to make sure you set yourself up to be successful in absentee business.
My name is Gavin Powell-Moore, and I'm in the process of opening the first of its kind all-vegan sports bar in the Washington, D.C. area. And I want the question for Lester and Nancy. At what point, once you open your business, do you think you will be ready to franchise? Would it be the number of corporate stores you have, or the number of years you actually have the store open?
When you know when you have a successful business. At that moment in time, and I mean, you can set a threshold of revenue. You can set a threshold of NOI or EBITDA and all that stuff, and that's great. But you'll know when you have a successful business, and you'll know because there'll be people coming in, and there'll be questions about, I wish there was something like this there. Then that starts not selling, but that starts the research. Going into other areas, are there other needs in other areas for vegan places, and what's the appetite for it? And once you can determine that, then you can potentially look at if this business is scalable. But you should know that it's scalable first, because if you can't build number two, you can't have anybody build your number two. So until you can get there, it's not time.
Yeah, let's talk afterwards. But yeah, absolutely, it's proof of concept. So is somebody going to buy into what you're selling and pay you royalties and all of those things? So that's really important. And being able to box it up and hand it over to somebody else. Can it be successful on its own? But let's talk.
Can it be replicated?
Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon. My name is Gary Hooker. I'm owner of Mr. Groom Room Barbershop. We have 3 locations in Raleigh. My question is as entrepreneurs, can you speak a little bit with regards to micromanagement from your corporate entity? I find personally that one of my personal struggles to go into franchising, maybe purchasing a Great Clips or Supercuts, was just the management oversight and them making you do certain things that you may or may not believe in doing. So could you speak to any of that, or is that an issue for an entrepreneur per se?
I think it's a balance. Like I said before, you do have that brand, which comes with a lot, but in order to maintain that brand, there are going to be a lot of rules and regulations, because they want to make sure, just like Lester said, if you're in, wherever you are in the world, the Big Mac tastes the same as it does in my restaurant. So the reality is that it can be a challenge. I mean, there are things you can and cannot do. So I think, again, going back to research to see what are the things you could and could not have flexibility on, and just going into that understanding. But there are definitely rules, and that's what creates the consistency.
Yeah, and on that as well, it's about researching others, because some are more lenient. Right. I have franchises where you can actually call the place your own name. You can brand it whatever you'd like. So that's where the research comes in that says which ones are going to let me be more flexible and which ones are a little bit more tight.
Hi, panel. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Timothy Catlett, Jr. I'm with a company out of Raleigh called Progressive Business Solutions, a printing and distribution company. My father started back in 1988. I had a question pertaining to interacting with the corporate heads of large brands such as McDonald's, Burger King's, or Chick-fil-A's. But there's communicating with corporate as far as interested parties that might want to share a value proposition of some sort that may be a benefit to the particular brand or store location. I've gathered advice from some of my business peers or colleagues that to talk with corporate, sometimes you need to talk with the franchisee owners or the general managers to see about proper direction. Is there any barriers as far as communication, as far as a small business is concerned, to a corporate entity like that?
Burger King has a buying arm called Restaurant Services, RSI. I sat on that board for a number of years. There is a way to get your product out there, but you have to go through the process, and I'll give you more information offline if you like.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
That's good. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Bria. I work in economics at the NAACP. I was curious to know about your experiences working with nonprofits locally.
So at McDonald's, both nationally and locally, we support the various organizations. we're actually, for the first time, going to be sponsoring the convention for the National Urban League. So we try to be in the community, different things that are going on, making sure that we're aligned. And I know for us, we have quite a few requests for things that are going on. So how we manage it in our organization, my sister is in charge of, processing all of those and making sure that, we're able to support the various activities that we need to. So for us, it's kind of, on a case-by-case basis, but we do support both locally and then on a national level.
Hello, my name is Sophia Hardaway, and I'm currently a UPS store franchisee. So my question is to you, Ms. Jacqueline. What determined your decision when you wanted to go outside of Burger King and go to another franchisee as in general versus staying within one like Ms. Nicole did, okay. And just expand accordingly?
It's so simple. I didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket. And so, and like Lester said, this is cyclic. We have good years and we have bad years. We have years that we're ahead of McDonald's, a few that it may be, but then we have, I'm just saying. No, we have good years, we have bad years, and I didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket. So when the opportunity came, and I read extensively, I try to keep up on what the trends are in food service, what's going to be hot and what's not. And so I looked at it that way, and when the opportunity came, it's when I went to the next one.
Okay. It's interesting. Speaking at it from the franchisor perspective, my task and my job is really finding people that aren't in hotels to go out and talk to them about the hotel franchise opportunity. So you have some franchisors that understand that you've got great business experience, and that discussion about diversification not only allows us to get a partner that's really good in business, but the ebbs and flows of this world, when oil's down, something else is up. Right. And so if you have businesses that are on the other sides of a cycle, you're always going to find yourself managing the world and the economy as it goes up and down. So it's a good idea. It's not for everybody, but it is a good idea to at least consider as you're looking through everything. There are franchises for everything. So
because the FDDs and the financials are basically somewhat the same rules and regulations. It's just a little different. But, okay.
Legally, yes. How it works operationally, very different.
Different, right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that takes us to the end. We're going to wrap up. I would like to thank the panel, Jackie, Lester, Nicole. You guys are a wealth of knowledge, and we appreciate your time.